Tim Lenderking calls on the government to take responsibility and establish peace in the country. Amid Houthi constant refusal to cooperate with the UN, safer oil tanker remains a looming disaster in the Red Sea. Houthis attack joint forces in Hodeidah, violating Stockholm Agreement. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. The United States Special Envoy to Yemen, Tim Lenderking, said the government must take responsibility to establish peace in the country. In a tweet welcoming the return of the PM to Aden, Lenderking stressed that it is now the time to improve the lives of Yemenis. The United States called for intensifying diplomatic efforts to resolve the Yemeni crisis. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan stressed President Biden's support for a lasting political solution and ending the Yemeni conflict. He affirmed Washington's full support for proposals and efforts of the United Nations to reach a political solution to end the war in Yemen. The United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, exchanged views with Yemeni youth about their role to build peace in Yemen. During a Zoom meeting entitled "The Future of Any Country Lies Within the Youth," Grunberg said Yemeni youth must be at the forefront in breaking the cycle of violence, build peace and protect freedom. The government and organizations warn that the risk of a massive oil spill in the Red Sea is growing daily, as Yemeni rebels prevent international experts from accessing an old, neglected tanker carrying more than 1 million barrels of crude oil. The following report tracks the potential threats this aging tanker poses on humans, nature, and marine life.
The Minister of Water and Environment, Tawfiq al-Shajabi, warned from Houthi militia's use of the floating Safer oil tank in the Red Sea as a blackmail for the international community and a weapon that threatens local and regional marine life. During the 9th session of the meeting of the states parties to the water agreement held at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, al-Shajabi said the explosion of a tanker carrying more than 1.1 million barrels of crude oil, or the leakage of its cargo, or the sinking of the Safer tank could affect 8,523 water points from water wells. Also, many river valleys with a length of at least 500 kilometers will be contaminated. Similarly, the head of the Yemeni Dutch Center for the Defense of Rights and Freedom, Nasser al-Qadari, warned of an environmental disaster if the Safer oil tank spilled. In Geneva, a symposium on Houthi crimes against the environment in Yemen was held. Al-Qadari called on the United Nations to act before an environmental disaster that could devour marine life in all its diversity. Houthi militia manipulates time to put pressure on the international community, Al-Qadari added. Arwa al-Khattabi, head of the Broken Chair organization, described the planting of sea mines without maps as dangerous, warning that Houthi mines are among the most dangerous disasters that will impede maritime navigation and affect the Yemeni economy. Arwa called on the international community to take stance towards the militia's planting of mines in violation of international and humanitarian treaties, as it is a war crime. The FSO Safer tank carries more than 1 million barrels of crude oil on board, and experts warn of an environmental catastrophe if it's spilled. The 40-year-old vessel is at sea 60 kilometers north of the Houthi-controlled port of Hodeidah. Water broke into the tanker's engine room and increased the risk of it sinking or exploding. It had a temporary repair, but the United Nations said it could have ended in a disaster. The tanker can have devastating impact on marine life in the Red Sea. The spread of an oil slick in the region would destroy the livelihood of many, especially to those who depend on fishing as an income. This alarming situation of Safer tanker and the consequences of its spillage remains a looming disaster to Red Sea and maritime navigation amid Houthi continuous indifference.
In Hodeidah, the joint forces stopped the Houthi infiltration east of Tohaita. Military sources reported that the joint forces engaged in violent clashes with the rebels, causing heavy losses among them in personnel and equipment. Still in Hodeidah, joint forces responded to the violations of Houthi militia which affected residential areas in Al-Jah. A military source said that the joint forces launched strikes which inflicted severe losses in the militia. A recent report of the Yemeni Coalition for Monitoring Human Rights Violations, RUSD, entitled Ma'rib, Civilians Under Bombardment and Siege, revealed the violations of the Houthi militia in Ma'rib. The report stated that the Houthi militia caused the death and injury of 2,032 people, including 294 children, 132 women, and 104 elders, through direct and deliberate targeting of populated areas and camps for displaced in Ma'rib. The Executive Unit for the Administration of IDPs camps of the Yemeni government stated that the humanitarian situation in Ma'rib continues to deteriorate rapidly as a result of the military escalation of Houthi militia in the city. In a statement, the unit indicated that this offensive increased family suffering and called for a rapid response in all humanitarian fields. The International Organization for Migration reported that displacement of 635 Yemeni families has been documented. Due to the escalation of fighting in Ma'rib, Shabwa and Abyan, 635 families, which represent 3,810 individuals, were displaced. The organization indicated that the largest number of displacement cases were recorded in Ma'rib. The ICRC is concerned about the current situation and its humanitarian consequences in Ma'rib. Newly displaced people lack basic humanitarian needs. The ICRC urged all parties to the conflict to take every possible measure to protect civilians, their properties and civilian essential infrastructure, and that health care and facilities, medical workers, and ambulances must be spared. Houthi rebels are accused of brainwashing children and sending them to battlefields. Field reports and media confessions confirm the high number of children killed in suicide attacks. The following report has more on that.
Houthi propaganda in mosques and summer centers has misled many families, thinking they will enhance the educational level of their children and spare them the void during the summer vacation. But the extremist religious mobilization that these children receive and the incitement that the fight is against the United States and the West made the teenagers affected by that propaganda, and many of them joined the battlefront. The recent Houthi offensive on Ma'rib led to the death of nearly 2,000 children recruited by the Houthis into their ranks. The Deputy Permanent Representative of Yemen to the United Nations, Marwan Nu'man, revealed that the Houthi militia has recruited more than 35,000 children since 2014, 17% of whom are under the age of 11, while more than 6,700 children are actively fighting with the rebels. In the same context, Mutahhar al-Badadi, Executive Director of the Yemeni Coalition for Monitoring Human Rights Violations, said that among the recruits were 308 children aged between 8 and 11 years, more than 4,000 children aged between 12 and 14 years, and more than 7,000 children aged between 15 and 17 years. Further, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, reported that 8.1 million Yemeni children are in need of emergency educational assistance due to the conflict in the country. This is a huge increase compared to 1.1 million children before the war. The organization also stressed the war must stop so that children can live their childhood. In early July, UNICEF officials said in a report that more than 2 million children of school age are currently out of school in Yemen, while more than 3,600 children have been recruited since the start of the war. Houthi militia uses schools, mosques, and summer camps to brainwash at least 60,000 children, train them, and send them to battlefields. Distortion of the curricula printed by the militia threatens to create a generation of extremists. Houthi snipers claim the lives of children daily in a horrific way in Taiz, which has been suffering from a suffocating siege by the Houthis for 7 years. These figures reveal only a small picture of the crimes committed by the Houthi militia against children in Yemen. However, the real one could be more intimidating.
Coming next. Amid war, water shortage has added to the burdens of Yemenis.
أقول لك راحت بالغداء لأهلها، شلت الغداء وراحت بأهلها في المزرعة. والمزرعة ركبت على حمار ما حتى نص المزرعة وانفجر فيها اللغم، دعست على اللغم وانفجر فيهم. الحمار انتهى ما ترفت بقعت رجليها كامل. نغير منها نغير الشبالة اللي هي البنت سابها من دور رجليها، لما صافناها طبية أقرب طبية وصافناها لا هي بطلت رجليها كامل.
قلت أزود هلي وقابل لي لعام وطبعته تحت الزوايا.
The war has devastated the entire country and made it hard for Yemenis to lead a normal life. Water shortage and access to clean water have been considered as one of the most difficult challenges facing Yemenis. More on this story is within this report.
The population of Yemen in general suffers not only from the scarcity of water, but also from the difficulty of accessing it. The source of the water is the wells and the summer rains, and the war has compounded the suffering of obtaining it. Access to clean water has, at times, become one of many Yemeni concerns. Residents are forced to buy water or rely on philanthropists who distribute water in containers distributed in the streets of the city. Severe water scarcity for decades constituted one of the most serious development challenges in Yemen. Recent restrictions on fuel imports into Yemen have contributed to fuel shortages and sharp price hikes across the country, severely hampering access to clean water and other vital services, including healthcare and sanitation. In just over a month, diesel fuel prices have doubled, putting the water supply at risk, especially for the poorest families. Water pumping stations serving more than 3 million people through public networks in 14 cities are rapidly running out of fuel. More than a quarter of the approximately 1 million suspected acute watery diarrhea and cholera cases are children under the age of 5. More than 385,000 severely malnourished children are struggling to survive. Difficulty obtaining safe drinking water is one of the main causes of malnutrition. UNICEF provides approximately 450,000 liters of fuel per month to keep water pumping stations operating in Sana'a, Hodeidah, and Hajj, among other cities across the country. However, UNICEF and other partners have been negatively affected by fuel shortages and high prices, which have made it even more difficult to meet the basic needs of children. The war exacerbates the suffering of Yemenis from the lack of drinking water and prompts them to use rainwater contaminated with germs and soil remnants. The efforts of international organizations and other charitable actors haven't succeeded so far in reducing this problem, which causes cholera and other diseases. With gallons, plastic containers originally used for oils, some Yemenis fetch water from a rainwater bottled pond. However, this water, which is used to cover the basic needs of the family, lacks sanitary standards. And this is the case for more than half of Yemenis who do not have access to clean water. Despite the war, the contamination of drinking water, the difficult conditions, and the restrictions on freedoms, life continues, while Yemenis keep struggling to live in a country where their survival in it is unbearable.
Houthi militia kidnapped the well-known journalist and photographer Abdulrahman al-Ghabri and stopped him from filming. According to local sources, the militia took the photographer al-Ghabri to Al-Luqayba police station in Sana'a and confiscated his personal camera before releasing him with a security guarantee. According to the sources, the militia claimed that al-Ghabri was using his camera without a permit from the Ministry of Information, while his license is issued from the Ministry of Culture of the militia and it's legal and valid. Houthis have imposed a suffocating siege, blocking the transfer of food supplies among cities. This has made it difficult for people to have easy access to basic commodities. This report has more on that.
The Houthi militia continued to close all outlets leading to Abdiya district, south of Ma'rib, and prevented any materials or supplies from entering the district for the 5th day in a row, while the World Food Programme stopped distributing aid to more than 10,000 people in the districts of Juba and Harib, south of the governorate, due to the Houthi militia's escalations of operations. Sources working on the relief side said that what was happening in the Abdiya district is a humanitarian crime in the first place, as the Houthi militia besieged and starved the entire population of the district, which numbered more than 5,000 families, equivalent to 35,000 people, because of their refusal to allow the Houthis to storm their area and blow up their homes, and repeat all the crimes they practiced when seizing the area. The sources denounced the government and international silence towards this crime and the lack of condemnation of this deadly siege, which threatens an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. In addition, the World Food Programme announced that it had temporarily suspended the distribution of relief aid in the districts of Al-Juba and Harib, south of Ma'rib, against the background of deteriorating security situation there due to the escalation of hostilities, and it said that this would affect about 10,400 people who are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. A week ago, Houthi militia opened a new front to fight in south of Ma'rib Governorate, across the border area that links Al-Bayda Governorate and Shabwa Governorate, where violent confrontations are taking place with government forces in the Harib district. After the Houthi militia arrived in the district and closed the roads leading to Al-Abdiya district, after the ports that were closed, the directory also connects to Al-Bayda Governorate. Houthi violations continue in all sectors. People cannot live their lives normally. Until when and how will the world help them? No one knows.
In Aden, starting today, the oil company has increased car fuel prices by 23%. The new price per liter will be 740 riyals instead of 610. The decision comes amid the fuel crisis in the temporary capital and other government-controlled areas. The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 28 new cases of the COVID-19 in 5 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 18 cases were recorded in Aden, 8 in Hadramaut, 4 in Ma'rib, 4 in Taiz, and 1 in Shabwa. Also 6 deaths were recorded, plus 17 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,067, including 1,721 deaths and 5,634 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. Tim Lenderking calls on the government to take responsibility and establish peace in the country. Amid Houthi constant refusal to cooperate with the UN, safer oil tanker remains a looming disaster in the Red Sea. Houthis attack joint forces in Hodeidah, violating Stockholm Agreement. This is the end of the news. It was Rushan Fouad. Thank you for watching.